Hey guys, how's it going? This is Danconia. Welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Week 9 Meta Preview. So, in Week 8 we saw a lot of different things. In Week 8, Sombra, Soldier 76, Winston and Lucio were banned. This meant that we saw less Reinhardt because Lucio is very good at getting Reinhardt into the fight. And when you couldn't close that gap between you and the enemy team, some teams came up with problems. That was some of the issues with the San Francisco Shock last week, where they wanted to play the Rein Zarya, but they couldn't close the gap between them and the Orisa Sigma comps that they were up against when they were especially playing the Valiant. So it's been a week of trying tests for the Pacific Division mainly, because that's what we saw in Week 8 during this meta, because yeah, it's not really been a problem having Soldier 76 and Sombra banned, and it's actually not been too much of an issue having Winston banned, because interestingly enough, we've seen majority of the Chinese teams, but also some of the Western teams as well, adopt the Hammond and just use Wrecking Ball in a dive. We have actually seen straight dive from the Chinese teams where we've seen Tracer, Genji, Hammond, D.Va, and a variety of supports, normally Ana Zen or Brigitte Zen. So it's been really interesting, and it's probably been one of the most varied weeks in terms of hero usage. So it was very interesting to see how the Overwatch League would also go about picking the heroes for week 9 to be banned, because obviously when they go into an online format there would be no Tombola, no Watchpoint Studio, nothing like that. So it was very interesting to see how they did it. And how did they do it? Well, they got a cat to do it, and Zoe's cat actually did a better job than Sideshow or Mr. X could do in the previous weeks of hero pools. So next week's hero pool is going to be really, really interesting. So the support, as we always do, we start off with the support, and the support to be banned is Brigitte. We have seen actually quite a bit of Brigitte in recent times, especially the past few gameplay weeks. In week 5 we saw her quite a bit. This week she's dominated, or the past week she's dominated because of Lucio's absence, because Brigitte is very good at supporting and protecting her other support, right? Lucio is also very good at that as well, and normally Lucio is the preferred pick for that. When he isn't available, you go for the Brigitte, because she's got the whip shot, she's got the stun, she's got decent healing output now, so that she can keep her other support alive while also being sufficient enough to output healing for her team. The only thing that she does lack is burst healing, but Lucio lacks that as well. Also, her rally's also obviously very good. So Brigitte will be missed by some teams, Florida Mayhem especially. Chris loves his Brigitte and is not so comfortable on the Lucio, but she's just going to be exchanged out probably for a Lucio. Lucio is very meta and has been for a while. It depends whether teams gravitate to playing the Reinhardt, because Reinhardt obviously works very well with a Lucio, but he also works very well with a certain DPS hero that is banned this week. So it's going to be interesting to see what road they go down, these teams. But let's move on to the tanks then. And the tank to be banned is a Wrecking Ball. We still haven't seen D.Va banned, by the way. Somehow D.Va is just escaping the ban hammer for hero pools at the moment. I'm sure she will come across one in a minute, because she is still very, very dominant with her playtime at the moment. But it is Wrecking Ball this week. I don't think that will have a massive impact. Obviously, the only team it will probably have a massive impact for is the Chengdu Hunters, because we all know how much Ameng loves his Wrecking Ball. But again, most teams will just exchange the Wrecking Ball out for a Winston. They probably would have done that anyway, considering Winston will be unbanned this week, even if Wrecking Ball hadn't have been banned. So I'm not expecting this to impact too many teams too much. But obviously, the outlier here is Chengdu Hunters, because Chengdu Hunters love to run that ball, and without that ball, Ameng has to swap back to things like the Reinhardt, like the Winston, and I think we all will agree that Ameng's strongest hero is the Wrecking Ball. And I think the Chengdu Hunters, providing a main can adjust fairly well, will be alright. I think they have had a good week 8, and they should be able to push on even if they haven't got the Wrecking Ball available to them. But here comes the big picks, the DPS. We obviously banned 2 DPS in the Overwatch League. Not 4. Not 4, Blizzard. Just 2. This is what we expected. These 2 heroes are the bans we expected in the first week. It's McCree and Mei. So, Mei gets her first ban. McCree is, I believe, the first hero to be banned twice. So, yeah, interesting. McCree, obviously very dominant. Mei, very dominant as well. Not as dominant as they were. Mei wasn't seen as much last week because there was no Lucio. And with no Lucio, less Reinhardt. So, this is the thing here, right? Will the ban of Mei be a detrimental effect on Reinhardt? Because, yes, Lucio's back, but Reinhardt works very well with that Mei. If Mei had been in the meta, or in the hero pool for week 9, I would have probably gone and said, well, they'll just exchange the McCree for a Widow. Which some teams are doing already, and I expect some teams to do that anyway. So, I think it will be a test of some teams and not others. Especially the teams that have played more this season. I still think most teams will be alright though. We are seeing a lot of variation from teams now. And that's the great thing about hero pools. But I expect probably the teams to benefit the most from this would be the Chinese teams. Because the Chinese teams, they really gravitated towards dive. And obviously, you're not going to use Mei in a dive. You're obviously not going to use a McCree much in dive either. They wanted to use more Doomfist, more Tracer, more Genji, and Sombra will be available now. So, I think this really does work in the favour of the Chinese teams. Obviously, they like the Pharah as well. Chengdu and Shanghai played the Pharah. So, I think this benefits the Chinese teams, and it'll be also interesting to see what fixtures we get. I don't know right now. This was recorded earlier. Because obviously if some of the Chinese teams play some of the teams that have now moved to Korea, like London, like Vancouver, and people like that, then it could provide us with some very interesting matchups. Very interesting matchups. You've got the Chinese teams that are very capable, even with these heroes banned. You've got the other teams that might not be so much. Remember, London Spitfire is an example, right? McCree. Glister was fantastic for the London Spitfire on McCree when we last saw them. So how are they going to fare without Glister on the McCree? Because he didn't look as good on the Widowmaker, although he did have good points. One benefit for the Spitfire would be, if we get to see them, no Wrecking Ball. Because the Wrecking Ball player they have, Jihun, is currently underage. And I wouldn't actually trust JMac on Hammond, because I don't trust JMac on any main tank, to be quite honest with you. Although, great segue there, because although has just become of age for the London Spitfire as well. So it'll be interesting to see if we see him this week if London do play. So there are good points and bad points. Again, if I was to use London as an example, Shui wouldn't have to play the Mei. So he gets to play something like a Genji, which is going to be better for him. Because I think he suited the Genji more than he did the Mei when we last saw him. We did get to see a little bit of Genji play. But there are teams that will benefit and teams that won't benefit. There are some teams that just won't be affected whatever the hero pools are. For example, the San Francisco Shock. If they can just get their teamwork sorted out, the hero pools don't make a difference to them because they've got so much depth in their DPS line with Striker, Sinatra, Ans, Rascal. They've got so much quality in their DPS that they can play pretty much anything. So it really doesn't matter. Then you've got people like New York as well. I wouldn't expect New York to be affected too much by this because they've got some really capable players. Like, this could really benefit Who Are You for New York if we get to see them, but I don't think we will get to see New York considering their announcement the other day. But this would be a perfect time for Who Are You because New York could go dive and then he wouldn't have to play the Mei, he could play the Genji. And that is Who Are You's best hero. So it's going to benefit some teams, not benefit others, and it's going to just not affect some teams as well. So During hero pools, we will see the best and worst of teams, right? We have seen it already have a massive impact. Houston Outlaws are an example, right? When we were gravitating a bit more towards dive, Houston Outlaws improved so much, and it's just buoyed the team. Obviously, we don't know when we will see the Houston Outlaws again, but this, again, would benefit them because they could play more dive style play, which, again, would favour Toronto Defiant as well. So, Toronto Defiant will have their Sombra back, and Toronto Defiant had a lot of success playing Hackfist. So, there are give and takes for any hero pool. But this week, we should see a significant change up in what we've seen before, because the two meta DPS heroes that we saw earlier on in the league season, McCree and May, are banned. So, even if we do see Reinhardt, along with the Lucio, we should see a very innovative DPS line. Although, not seeing the May, I think we will see less Reinhardt. I think we will see more dive. Just because less Brigitte means less protection for the back line, even though you've got the Lucio. May means less crowd control. McCree means less crowd control, which means Winston, D.Va, Genji, Tracer, Doomfist, they can get more done. So, if I'm going to take a whole look at the meta right now and say week 9, what would dominate or what we will see the most of, I would say dive. I would say dive. But, again, I'm no pro player, so we don't know what these guys are going to come out with. But my bets would be on Winston, D.Va, dive right now. We will see though. It should be a really, really interesting week 9, especially if we see some of the other teams that we didn't see last week. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you like to, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.